Morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and welcome to your detailed forecast update for January 13th, 2025. A detailed forecast update coming your way today. We're going to be talking about showers and severe thunderstorms across the southeast of Queensland, rainfall possible for the central areas of Queensland, heavy falls also possible up into the far north of Queensland from tropical downpours. We'll talk about the Northern Territory rainfall forecast as well, and over in the west where we do have significant falls and a possible tropical cyclone now on the cards as well. We'll talk about all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you're brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things this morning over in the southeast of Queensland, where we do still have that risk of significant thunderstorms over the coming couple of days. By extension, I'm also going to include the northeast of New South Wales in this forecast here. I'm going to try and be as inclusive as possible to it, especially the Northern Rivers section, because they are also on the cards for receiving some significant thunderstorms as well. Now, recently they have had a couple of good showers and storms, a great outbreak yesterday afternoon by the looks of things as well, with a couple of heavy falls noted around the southeastern corners of Queensland, with some more rainfall coming throughout the course of today. A low pressure system sits offshore right now, and that's going to be funneling through a few showers and storms until this afternoon, when they will turn into a nice line of thunderstorms, especially further inland and into the northeastern corners of New South Wales, especially between the line of Tamworth through Armidale and up to Wollongara, and that would include Glen Innes and Inverell as well into the northeastern corners of New South Wales. We are expecting a good area of thunderstorms through there, with the chance of some severe ones as well, heavy rainfall and damaging winds. Large hailstones doesn't look especially likely at this time, just given the setup, but this onshore flow here will provide the northeast of New South Wales and the southeast of Queensland, but especially the northeast of New South Wales with some significant moisture and just all round really good conditions to fire up some decent thunderstorms. Into the southeast of Queensland, there will be some good thunderstorms, especially to the south of Toowoomba. Areas that stick out right now, Stanthorpe and Warwick, for receiving some good thunderstorms, and you can see on the convective forecast models as well, they are going to be pretty widespread, especially into the New South Wales side of things. Plenty of thunder cells to go around there, and then along the border there'll also be some good thunderstorms as well. Further north, there will be a couple of storms here and there into the Sunshine Coast, especially inland out towards Kingaroy and Gympie, but they will be much fewer and further between, and only a couple of storms expected out there, and none of them are expected to go severe at this point. Further inland out towards Taroom, Injune and Roma as well, a couple of thunderstorms also possible out there, but again the chance of severe ones looking minimal at this time, and nothing else around the other areas of Queensland. A couple of showers possible later on this afternoon and evening from the Gold Coast. There are a few showers lingering in the area today. They'll build over the coming couple of hours before easing off this evening, and you can see that they should clear out by later tonight into very early tomorrow morning. Still a couple of showers lingering through early tomorrow morning, which will turn to thunderstorms later on in the day, especially in the same areas that are expecting thunderstorms later tonight. I think tomorrow night will just be a kind of dulled down version, where only the most significantly impacted areas tonight will receive thunderstorms tomorrow night. That'll be around the Wollongara and Warwick area by the looks of things. It'll be touch and go whether to see New South Wales or Queensland gets the worst of it, but it looks like right now around the between sort of Tenterfield and Warwick is where the worst of the storms are going to be tomorrow afternoon, just in this area. But it'd be a big stretch to call them bad or gnarly severe thunderstorms. I'm not expecting severe thunderstorms tomorrow night, not at least in the southeastern corners of Queensland. Further out into the central areas of Queensland, as far north as Claremont and Moranbah, some good thunderstorms possible out there. Emerald, Claremont possible for a couple of severe thunderstorms later on tomorrow night. Same deal for Rolleston as well, and further out towards Jericho and Muttaburra as well, a good couple of cells possible out there. Further towards the coastline between Rockhampton and Gladstone, inland to Billawheeler, a couple of thunderstorms there, but nothing severe, nothing crazy by the looks of things, and then it looks stock standard across the remainder of the southeastern corners and the central regions of Queensland. Now, pushing the forecast forward, you can see Wednesday another outbreak is expected here and there, but it will be much further inland. You can see weak thunderstorms possible out towards the Chinchilla area, and then out towards Rolleston. A couple of good storms are possible out there, but not very likely at this time, and a good outbreak possible around the Rockhampton and Ogmore area. Again, I would like to see the convective forecast models, the forecast at least for Wednesday, just considering the fact that there is still a high degree of uncertainty considering the forecast there. And it also doesn't look like significant thunderstorms are on the cards. Thursday should be plain and boring. A couple of storms possible into the northeast of New South Wales, probably going to cross the border into the Gold Coast area, but nothing else expected around the remainder of Queensland, or at least into the southeast and the central areas of Queensland. Friday, a good couple of storms expected into the central regions, then looking at the forecast a little bit further beyond that. Saturday, storms are possible into the southeast, but beyond that, the forecast is quite murky. I did say yesterday that for people sick of the thunderstorms in the southeast of Queensland, good news that there isn't an awful lot on their cards from about the 19th of January onwards. In fact, that is still true right out to about Australia Day. Yes, there will be a couple of storms here and there, but it takes about a week until about the 25th or the 26th when they do reappear on the forecast. And again, we're looking at thunderstorms nearly 2 weeks out into the future here, actually 2 weeks out into the future, and as such, the forecast is very uncertain and can change quite dramatically. So Again, from about the 18th or the 19th onwards after this weekend, should enter about a week-long period of drier weather without those storms before they return about a week later as we get into the later parts of January. I do expect February to be a stormy month, especially to get off to a stormy start, but that's just my longer range early prediction at this time. I think those storms might fall over into January, but again, we will wait and see with what is expected there. Certainly some good falls possible over the next week across the southeast of Queensland. Nothing crazy, but triple-figure rainfall accumulations over the next week are possible, especially as you get further in now towards Taroom, Injune and Rolleston. Some good falls also possible into the Sunshine Coast and down in towards the Gold Coast as well, and then between Warwick and Wollongara I expect some good falls down there as well. Northern Rivers as well, with thunderstorms that are possible over the next 5 days. Some good falls also possible down there, and you can see those on the rainfall accumulation maps. The falls out towards Inverell and Armidale, obviously underestimated here because we are talking about thunderstorms, but a minimum of 50 millimetres should be rolling through those areas, which is very good news indeed. They do need the rainfall down there, and especially into the agricultural areas, always needing the rainfall. So this rainfall here will be much welcome across the central areas of Queensland. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how these thunderstorms do pan out. That does it for the northeast of New South Wales and the southeast of Queensland. Just before I get into the central and the northern areas of Queensland, I would just like to say that a good couple of thunderstorms are possible. In fact, the stormiest weather will actually be along the coast of New South Wales throughout the next 7 days. Outbreaks expected pretty much every day there. Northeast of New South Wales, north of Tamworth, expecting a good outbreak today, as we mentioned earlier. And then tomorrow it's going to be areas south of Sydney, between Sydney and Wollongong, out towards Camden and Penrith. Some good thunderstorms possible there. Canberra and Captain's Flat as well, a couple of good thunderstorms wrapping around a low pressure system offshore, inland from Bega rather, and as such there'll be some good thunderstorms between the highest peaks of the Kosciuszko range towards the coastline. There'll be some good storms out there, and also inland out towards Orange and Dubbo as well tomorrow afternoon. Some good storms possible there. Really good storms expected Wednesday into the Gippsland region of Victoria, and then across central areas of New South Wales as well, between Dubbo right out towards the coastline around sort of Taree and Newcastle. Sydney also some good thunderstorms expected Wednesday. Thursday is looking a little bit calmer. There'll be the northeast of New South Wales picking up the thunderstorms there, but yeah, Wednesday certainly looking like a good day for an outbreak. We'll talk about that in tomorrow morning's forecast update. I'll give a very detailed forecast update on that. And then beyond that, it's the same story with the southeast of Queensland. About a week of drier, calmer weather before the thunderstorms return around the Australia Day period for the northeast of the state, but it doesn't really look like they stick around there too dramatically. But again, we are looking at thunderstorms a long way out into the future, so things can and will change, at least on the forecast from this time. But yeah, certainly some interesting stuff. Wednesday and Thursday, both days to watch across New South Wales for thunderstorms. Certainly something that we'll revisit in tomorrow morning's forecast update, where we get a great look at the convective forecast models there. Now, let's head back up into Queensland, especially across the central areas in the far north. There has been a bit of a change in the forecast from yesterday, and you can see that very evidently with the rainfall accumulation forecast over the next 14 days. It really isn't that dramatic anymore. Now, we're going to discount any rainfall beyond about the 10-day forecast period, because like I said, the forecast right now is still very unreliable, but you can see 10-day rainfall accumulations are not high at all. They only start to build as you get north of Weipa up towards Thursday Island, and even there, 200 millimetres. It can be a drop in the ocean over a 10-day period up in that part of Queensland, but you can see the Cassowary Coast and the Atherton tablelands, a couple of good drops of rainfall possible, but that's mainly from thunderstorms over the next few days, which I'll get to in just a second. That tropical rainfall that we were talking about, it seems to have disappeared at this time, and I'll get to the bigger picture of that in just a moment. But I would like to talk about the thunderstorms that are expected across the Cassowary Coast and the Atherton tablelands over the coming couple of days. Last night, a very healthy outbreak of thunderstorms. Tonight, we'll also see a couple of good thunderstorms here and there across the North Queensland area. You can see the axis convective model not really calling for too much in the way of thunderstorms. A good couple of cells possible out towards Moomba and Lockhart River, and then of course further inland out towards Mount Isa, McKinley, Cloncurry, that sort of area. Typical stuff for that area this time of the year. Some good thunderstorms possible to outbreak there. Maxwellton, Huendon, Charters Towers, good couple of thunderstorms also possible there, kind of wrapping around this high pressure system that'll be in the middle of all of this. Upscaling pretty quick later on to the night to a big score line, and then tomorrow afternoon and evening, just take a look at this. Huge thunderstorms expected to fire up across the Atherton tablelands, then inland towards Georgetown and Croydon. Again, this is remote areas of far north Queensland, but we're talking about the Atherton tablelands now, with some really good thunderstorms penetrating across Atherton, Mareeba and Ravenshoe. Also further inland out towards Chilago and Mount Carbine, Laura, Woodgill, Cooktown, Port Douglas, also expecting some good thunderstorms as well tomorrow afternoon and evening. Really are expecting a meaty outbreak of thunderstorms by the looks of things, and it's reciprocated between other forecast models as well, which gives me a great degree of confidence in saying that this is expected to happen at this time. They will be isolated and certainly certainly some tropical heavy downpours are expected, and things can change on this forecast here, so it's not completely set in stone, but certainly expecting some really good showers and thunderstorms to outbreak later on tomorrow afternoon and evening, probably from about 2 or 3 p.m. onwards, reaching their peak at around 4 or 5 p.m. and then collapsing in on themselves from about 6 p.m. onwards up there. Typical tropical stuff, heavy to torrential downpours are expected. They'll likely accumulate with rainfall accumulations up to about 70 or 80 millimeters, depending on exactly where you are, and possibly even more rainfall is likely to fall on top of that. Pushing the forecast forward throughout tomorrow afternoon, you can see no thunderstorms and showers really expected to continue the trend through Tuesday. There'll be a couple of thunderstorms expected through Wednesday and a good outbreak expected through Thursday as well, especially into Thursday morning and then again into Thursday afternoon. Good thunderstorms here and there. Friday, another chance of thunderstorms, but then beyond that, it looks like the chances do start to diminish. Saturday and Sunday, there is the chance and the possibility there. Same deal with Monday, but it doesn't look like it's awfully likely at this time. And then pushing the forecast forward between Monday the 20th and right out to the end of the forecast period, through that week, there is still just a little bit too much uncertainty. I do expect thunderstorms and some good downpours here and there across the far northern areas of Queensland, across much of the Cape York Peninsula, but the forecast is just a little bit too murky at this time. So in short, good thunderstorms expected tomorrow, and the chance of some good thunderstorms on Wednesday and Thursday. Friday, just regular thunderstorms. Saturday and Sunday, the chance of some regular thunderstorms. Monday and Tuesday, things coming off, and then from there on, the forecast just becomes just a little bit too uncertain at this time. But yeah, pushing the forecast right through into the longer range, you can see that we're not expecting that tropical rainfall to pile on, and this does build into the West Australian side of things, but the tropical low that we were expecting to be basically a guaranteed over the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf and into the Northern Territory, the forecast has once again completely switched up and called for it to be dragged offshore from Western Australia to then go on to impact Western Australia. Now, I'm not going to spoil all of that right now because that's in a separate part of the video, so you can skip to that in the description down below. But what this means is that we're going to see this system track towards the west, and it's not going to be dragging in as much moisture, certainly not as much moisture across the Cape York Peninsula and into the Gulf of Carpentaria. There will be some significant rainfall observations across northern areas of the Northern Territory from all the spin-off stuff wrapping into it, but especially for the Cape York Peninsula, the rainfall is not going to be what it was once expected to be on the forecast. There is a saving grace though, because far north Queensland, yes, it has had a couple of good days of downpours up there. We have already had a couple of rainfall depressions, but it hasn't really kicked into gear yet. And I've spotted this comment a few times, is that the wet season just hasn't felt like the wet season just properly yet across areas of the Cape York Peninsula. Now, there is a chance of that happening later on into the forecast period towards the start of February. I am expecting there to be enough energy in the Coral Sea, especially into the early parts of February, to really provide a good rainfall event and a good kind of rainfall depression to track over the Cape York Peninsula, sit itself in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and just spin up hundreds of millimeters of rainfall across the Cape York Peninsula. Again, that's just a hunch right now. It's not even really supported by the forecast models. The ECMWF, as you can see, is really calling for that later on into the forecast period, with some significant falls possible along the Cassowary coast and on Monday the 27th of January, but that's looking really long range. The other forecast models are also behind that. I mean, you can see the GFS forecast model here calling for some onshore flow stuff, which is the precursor stuff to that significant rainfall that the ECMWF is calling for. So again, it does look like late into January we will start to see some heavy falls pile on across the far northern areas of Queensland, especially across the Cassowary coast at this time, but it doesn't look like the really heavy stuff is going to take hold from this tropical low over the next couple of days. Which is good news because, like I said, far north Queensland has already received some significant falls, especially where we were initially concerned for the rainfall, which was between Cairns and Townsville. They only received a rainfall depression about 3 weeks ago that dropped up to 900 millimeters of rainfall around the Ingham area. So really significant falls there. They're still recovering. Rivers are quite close to the minor flooding alert, so it is good that the rainfall is going to hold off there for at least another 2 or 3 weeks by the looks of things, because if we saw rainfall piling on there between the 17th and the 21st of January, which is what we were looking at, we'd be looking at a flooding emergency unfolding up there, because they don't really need significant rainfall for the next week or so. It's kind of only the inland and agricultural areas that do significantly need the rainfall at this time. They always need the rainfall though, so it'd be good to see some rainfall falling for those areas there. That's a very overcomplicated take on the forecast here, so I'm not surprised if I see the viewer retention graph absolutely tank, and if I have left your head spinning, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. That's about all I can milk out of the far northern areas of Queensland, and same deal for the Northern Territory, but let's head over now to Western Australia, where some significant stuff is on the forecast, especially if you're a follower of historically the most accurate forecast model, the GFS forecast. Let's not dive straight into the crazy stuff just yet. Let's just break this down for you step by step. Significant falls are expected over the next week across much of the Northern Territory and especially into the Kimberley region of Western Australia as well. Regardless of what exactly happens with the formation of this tropical low, there will be some significant rainfall accumulations observed across parts of Western Australia and the Northern Territory, especially for locations between Broome, right up through Derby, and then across towards Columbaroo, across far northern areas of Western Australia. Rainfall totals should be in excess of 300 millimetres there, and that is going to be from the formation of a tropical low in the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf and then dragging across the northern areas of Western Australia. And you can see between other forecast models as well, the rainfall accumulations have been reciprocated there. The GFS expecting some really significant falls across northern areas of Western Australia, the Axis as well expecting some pretty significant falls up there. So let's break down exactly what that means for the forecast right now. So from about Saturday, we will see a low pressure system begin to take hold somewhere offshore from Western Australia. Now, right now, the ECMWF is calling for this to take hold right down offshore from Western Australia here, north of Port Hedland and Karratha. In contrast to that, the GFS is calling for it to be in a much more kind of reliable situation here, north of Columbaroo or just offshore from Columbaroo and Truscott. Now, this is premium formation zones for tropical cyclones, and as such, I'm more inclined to follow the GFS forecast model for this solution here. So that's the forecast model that I'm going to be using for this forecast, but don't be fooled, the GFS is certainly not perfect, and I'm going to outline the inaccuracies that it is going to bring to the table in the next couple of minutes. So throughout this coming Saturday and Sunday, this system will begin to slowly develop before rapid development takes place from Sunday evening. This system is then likely to make the most of some very healthy conditions, both thermodynamically and in the sea surface temperatures across the waters of Western Australia, and it will likely go boom in terms of intensity. That means rapid intensification will kick in from Sunday night through Monday, Tuesday, and right through its 3-day run up to a possible landfall on the West Australian coastline, which at this time is forecast to be later on Wednesday night as per the GFS forecast model. So we're only talking 9 days out into the future here on the 22nd of January. Now, if this was even a couple of more days out into the future, I'd be discarding this as complete bogus. The GFS is calling for something absolutely wacky again, but considering this has been on the forecast for the last 2 weeks, I'm now very inclined to say that this is a reliable solution on the forecast. But, and I have to preface this with but, we've seen this time and time again from the GFS forecast model. If you can think back to Cyclone Saroja of 2021 or 2022, I believe it was quite a while ago now, at least 2 or 3 years ago, that system formed off Indonesia, and it was expected to become a Category 5 cyclone in 2 weeks of consecutive forecast runs by the GFS forecast model, and then slam into Western Australia at some location between Exmouth and Kalbarri. It never did that. It rapidly intensified just before landfall on Kalbarri and Northampton, but apart from that, it kind of lived its life as a weak Category 1 or 2 strength tropical cyclone across the premium waters of Western Australia. It really struggled to wind shear, and that's just a classic case of the GFS dramatically overestimating this system here, and it is likely to be doing the same with this system as well. I mean, 923 millibars, you'd be talking about a historically strong landfall here, with wind gusts well in excess of the 200 kilometre an hour kind of threshold here. Peak wind gusts around sort of that 100 knot area, so about 180 kilometre an hour wind gusts, and considering that's the GFS forecast model, which is a dramatic low baller on winds, you'd be talking about winds up to about 200 kilometres an hour. Again, do not panic. It's very unlikely to be this strong landfalling on Western Australia, somewhere between Karratha and Port Hedland. I would like to say that landfall, or at least tropical cyclone impacts between Exmouth and Broome now look exceedingly likely sometime next week, between Monday and about Thursday or Friday, and a significant tropical cyclone landfall is entirely possible at this time, but a Category 5 strength tropical cyclone crossing the West Australian coastline, as per what the GFS is saying right now, I'd probably give that very low single-digit percentage chances of happening. There is, of course, a chance, just considering the sea temperatures here, 31, 32 degrees, right up towards landfall, bathwater stuff, and especially considering it's going to be tracking over the absolute warmest stuff of that, it is going to have a very favourable conditions ahead of it. But normally with these high levels of sea temperatures, I find, and there's obviously no kind of correlation here, or no proven correlation, but I do find that these very warm sea temperatures have a really easy time firing up thunderstorms, and with thunderstorms you get instability and wind shear, and that's often not good news for tropical cyclones that are trying to organise. So as such, we might be saved by the sea temperatures just being a little bit too hot here with this tropical cyclone trying to form. It will likely struggle to wind shear with just so much thunderstorm activity happening around it that the atmosphere just becomes hostile to it and blows the system apart. Again, that's something that I've found with West Australian systems time and time again. There's of course no proven correlation with that, but you normally see that there's a monster cyclone on the forecast and then it just collapses in on itself and it's a complete bust at this time. I've spent 5 minutes probably scrambling your brain right now on how this system is going to develop. Right now, what I do expect is cyclone impact somewhere between Exmouth and Broome in the next 10 days on the West Australian coastline. A significant cyclone landfall is, of course, possible somewhere between Karratha and Port Hedland, as per what the GFS is saying, but again, the chance of a Category 4 or 5 strength tropical cyclone making landfall right now sits at about 2 or 3%. That chance, of course, can and it probably will rise, especially as this system slowly develops. I'm expecting it to form offshore from the northern areas of the Kimberley region and as such track down through Western Australia or adjacent to the West Australian coastline. I don't really expect it to form north of Karratha and Port Hedland as per what the Eastern Bedford model is saying, and then likely this system as well will rapidly intensify at least one point in its lifetime, and if it spends 3 or 4 days offshore then it could certainly become a problem system. If you do have any questions or comments regarding this system, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, situations with this system still very uncertain at this time, and as you can see on the satellite imagery, it hasn't even formed yet. So we're talking about a system that hasn't even formed yet. It's just a kind of, it's literally artificially generated at this time, this storm is. It hasn't formed yet. We don't have any signs that this system is going to form anytime in the next couple of days, but it is certainly a good chance. A lot of model support back in this system, and I would also like to say that between the between the GFS forecast model rather and the Axis G3, things are very, very consistent right now. The Axis and the GFS calling for pretty much the exact same thing in their forecast. I think the Axis G3 being a much more reliable forecast model at this time. Again, a landfall late Wednesday evening as a powerful tropical cyclone on shore with Karratha, which is identical to what the GFS forecast model is suggesting at this time. So we will watch the forecast very closely, and there'll be dedicated video updates on this system as it slowly develops, and I expect to give you a proper answer on what this system is going to be doing on Thursday and Friday. And I would also like to say for Northern Territory and Queensland viewers, you will miss out on this system, especially over in Queensland. You'll completely miss out on the rainfall. Northern Territory, you'll likely miss out on a lot of the rainfall now, and also definitely the tropical cyclone impacts at this time. Interesting stuff, and certainly something concerning that we need to be watching quite closely on the forecast. If you have enjoyed this video, then please let me know in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel if you also haven't already and enjoyed this content. I release daily forecast updates. Haven't missed a day bar Saturday for sickness since October, so again, we really are dedicated here at the CyclonesOZ channel. So thank you so much for watching the video to this point, and I will catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.